Breaking news, the Shecago Bears suck. Again, we're going to deep dive into it. I'm Alexis Jade, and this is the Shecago Bears. Well, guys, I don't know how, but the Bears have done it again. They've managed to get our hopes up after a dominating win and bring them right back on down to reality with a devastating and embarrassing loss. I don't know how they do it, honestly. It's like a roller coaster of emotions every week, and you just never know what you're going to get with them. So you got to give them credits for that. I mean, if it was like a TV show, it would be the most entertaining show you're ever going to watch. But unfortunately, this is a sports team that you want to win and take you to the Super Bowl, and we're nowhere near that. So let's just get into it. I guess let's start by breaking down the game, right? As we all know, Justin Fields was not active for this game. He was still out with his right thumb injury, so Tyson Bagent was starting. And the game kind of went probably as most people expected, but not as most people hoped. I, for one, was completely wrong with my predictions. I picked the Bears to win this game. And I think had the Bears performed as I thought they could have, the Bears could have won this game, or at least kept it close. And unfortunately, I think what we all expected to happen happened, and that was Justin Herbert completely sliced and diced across our entire defense and dominated the game. So if by some odd chance you missed the game, the Bears lost 30-13, so you did not miss a lot. At the end of the day, Justin Herbert, like I just mentioned, he had a great game against our defense. I mean, he was able to distribute the ball all over the place. I think he had 12 completions before he had his first incompletion. And I mean, I think on almost every single drive in the first half, they scored on. In the second half, they were held to 6 points only. But I mean, by that point, it didn't matter. They were already up by almost 30 points, and we had no chance of catching up. So why was Justin Herbert able to just slice and dice our defense? Because our defense sucked. We had absolutely no pressure on the quarterback. We did not blitz. Our secondary had soft coverage, and we couldn't stop their screen game, which is something we're supposed to be good at, and we couldn't even stop their screen game. And Justin Herbert is a good quarterback. He's the second best quarterback the Bears have faced in Matt Eberflus's tenure as the Bears quarterback, as the Bears head coach. And it just goes to show our defense cannot handle playing a NFL top-tier quarterback. Our defense relies on bad quarterbacks or decent quarterbacks to make a mistake here and there that then helps swing the game in our direction. When we actually go against a good offense or a good quarterback, our defense falls flat on their back. Why we didn't decide to send in the blitz when our defensive line couldn't get a single pressure is beyond me. Why we were playing soft coverage is beyond me. At this point in the season, we need to play aggressive. I mean, we always need to play aggressive, but at this point, we have nothing to lose. So why are you not just blitzing? Why are you not just sending everyone to Herbert? He already is playing with a broken finger on his left hand. So give him a little bit of stress. Make him feel a little uncomfortable. That's all you need for a quarterback to start to make some mistakes here and there. You don't even have to get a sack. But we couldn't even give Justin Herbert any trouble. I mean, I tweeted this, he could have pulled out a lawn chair and sat and surveyed the field for a little bit before throwing the ball if he wanted to. We gave him so much time. It was ridiculous. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good your offense is. No team can win when your defense lets up that many points. And we saw that last year. Last year, our offense was putting up almost 30 points a game for like 5 games in a row, and we didn't win any of them. We didn't win one because our defense let up way too many points. And I don't know what my hands are doing here, but my brain is sporadic at this point. So I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. But no team can win with that. And even if we had Justin Herbert on our team, I don't even think he could have come back from that deficit, because to a certain point, you're just playing catch up the entire game and you don't stand a chance. I think for me, the most disappointing part of the defense being so poor is that we have a defensive-minded head coach. How do we have a defensive head coach and we don't have a defense? How does that even happen? I mean, the defense started to improve the past 2-3 games, and yet somehow we get to this week, we play a good quarterback, and we're like, oh, this is all a joke. Our defense is actually still hot garbage. And yet, the one thing that this head coach is supposed to be good at is defense. And he's the one calling the plays now. So how we still have one of the worst defenses in the league is not acceptable, honestly, at this point. It just isn't. This should not be allowed to continue. Which leads us into our offense, because a good offense can't survive this defense. And even if this defense was good, it wouldn't matter because our offense also performed poorly. It was an all-around team loss. Now, as I stated earlier, as we all know, Tyson Bagent was in for Justin Fields. Second NFL start ever, his first ever away game, and a Sunday night football game nonetheless. But he did his best. Tyson didn't have a great game. Tyson didn't have a bad game. He had a game. He had 2 interceptions, which, he had a few other passes that were kind of not great balls. But he's also a rookie, and he's also his second NFL start. He also had some good plays. He had 2 touchdowns that should have been on the board that were taken away. Thank you, refs. And overall, he was efficient enough that if we had a competent team, maybe could have helped us inch closer to a win or kept it close, but we didn't. And therefore, he struggled, the offense struggled, it was a hot mess. I also honestly think that the media and the fans, or I should say some media and some fans, I think overhyped Tyson and set too high of expectations on him to suddenly go out and just be this baller. Would it have been awesome to see? Yes. Did I ever think that was going to happen? No. I thought maybe he would put up similar numbers as he did the past week, and it might give us a win or might keep it close. But no, he looked like a decent backup quarterback. And I will say, of all the backup quarterbacks the Bears have ever had, he's probably the best one. And he's only played 2 games. So that's promising. And I would love to see him as the backup quarterback for the Bears for the foreseeable future. But I think it's safe to say our QB controversy is done. And I will get into that in a minute, but let's just finish getting over the offensive key points here. Overall, the execution was poor. There was dropped passes, there was misassignments, there was whiffed blocks, and that goes for both sides of the ball. Overall, this game was a game lost in the trenches, which is a common theme here for the Bears team. We cannot seem to win in the trenches because we never did anything for the trenches in the offseason. Why, Ryan Poles? I don't know. And I've given Ryan Poles the benefit of the doubt this entire time. But honestly, I'm getting sick of excuses, and I don't even know what else to say at this point. There are some good moves I think he's made, but how do you let the trenches get this bad? And honestly, Darnell Wright was our best addition this offseason, and him and Tevin Jenkins are our only key points on the offensive line, so you can't say he didn't do anything. But at the same time, how did you think that this offensive line was feasible? How did you think that this offensive line was going to get us through the season? I just don't understand. And I know there's only so much you can do, right? But why did we send away Roquan to then get 2 linebackers and pay them that money when we could have just paid Roquan and got some extra draft picks for some more offensive line and defensive line talent? I don't know. Maybe I'm undervaluing how much this all takes, and I probably am. But I can't say I'm not frustrated, and I don't understand the process. And I think overall, the most disappointing part of this loss, and all the losses so far this season, is that we were better last year when we were the worst team in the NFL. We were competitive. We lost, 7 games within 7 points or less? We don't look like that team this year. I understand we're in a rebuild, and I understand expectations were probably too high going into the season, but we should still be better. We should still be improved from where we were last year. And honestly, our team last year seemed more capable, had more fight, was more put together than they are this year. And I think the only thing you can really point to reflect on why that is the coaching staff. I will agree that the players need to also take accountability for their misassignments and their execution. However, at the end of the day, when your team gets worse on a rebuild, when you've added some key players and you've added some talent to the roster, and the team gets worse, that should reflect on the coaches, and something is not getting translated correctly. And it's just mind-boggling to me, because I don't think fans were wrong for expecting for there to be a little bit of a jump going into this season and expecting there to see a little bit more chemistry, a little bit more flow, a little bit more identity, and we've seen nothing. It's like we don't even know who we are. We don't know how to win. We get one win and we think we're in the Super Bowl. We get one loss and we think, we'll bounce back next week. We don't even know what we're doing. I could just keep going on a tangent, but overall, I don't know what's going on, and it was just another loss that proved that this team is bottom of the barrel. So as we're talking about the coaching was piss poor. It was a terrible job. Eberflus is literally throwing a challenge flag as we're scoring a touchdown. Luke Getzey was calling a wraparound, the end around, the jet sweep. I don't know what the play was to Trent Taylor when we have Scott, we have Velus Jones, which don't get me started on him. But what are we doing? Oh my God. And we're having Darnell Mooney throw the football to Tyson Bagent when we have Roshan Johnson, who was a previous quarterback. And why are we even doing that play? What is going on? What is going on with the Bears and this coaching staff? Honestly, the only coach whose job is safe is special teams. They've been fine. Knock on wood. Because who knows now, but they've been the only good part of this team so far. Now, obviously, some of this game was a little bit skewed because of the refs. I don't know what 2 stoppage of plays that could have been touchdowns are for, or what some of these pass interference calls were, some of these holding calls. I think, if I remember correctly, the Bears had 17, I think, or was it 7? Maybe that's a bit much. I swear they said 17, though. Flags against them in the first half. The Chargers had 1. Now, I think the other thing here is I don't like to be a whiner and say this was all the refs' fault. It wasn't. We sucked. But I think the refs' mistakes stand out more noticeable when you're a terrible team because every penalty just sets you further and further back. However, there was definitely some questionable play calling, and I would have loved to see Eberflus, chatting with the refs and figuring out what the hell is going on. But he didn't, and I expect nothing less. But it was a very odd game from the refs, and honestly, at this point, we can't blame them for the loss because we lost that game ourselves, but it was a very odd officiated game. Now, before I move on to the next segment, I will address the QB controversy comment. QB controversy should be done. There is no Bagent or Fields. I said this the last video and I say it again, but this has proved, I think, to everyone that there is no QB controversy. Fields is the starter going into hopefully next week or whenever he's healthy. Fields is the starter as it should be. And you can have your doubts about Fields, and that's valid if you do. But Justin Fields is our starter. Tyson Bagent is our backup, and a very good one at that. And I'm glad we have him. And I think seeing him develop into next year will be exciting to see how he grows and improves, especially now that he has NFL playing time experience. But we should all be rooting for Justin Fields to succeed because I feel like if anything, these last few games have shown us with Tyson Bagent starting is that it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. This team just sucks. And you can agree or disagree that Justin Fields is our starting quarterback going into 2024. However, although I believe Justin Fields has things he needs to work on, we should be able to be a winning team with Justin Fields. We've never had a talent of Justin Fields' caliber. And showing that we've had 2 different quarterbacks start this year and there's still the same problems. You should watch these games and be able to realize that there are so many other problems on this Bears team besides the quarterback that we need to address. So in my opinion, I don't see how drafting a quarterback first pick in the draft, if we get it, Carolina won, so we'll see. If we get the first pick in the draft, I don't see how drafting a quarterback helps our draft position, or I don't see how drafting a quarterback first in the draft helps our roster or helps our team. I think all we're doing is just putting a Band-Aid on an open wound that needs stitches, and I don't understand what we're doing. But that's just my opinion. I know there's a lot of people who think we should move on from Fields, and you know what? Maybe my opinion will change if Fields plays terrible the rest of the season, but I don't think he will. And I also think you look at what he's working with, and there's so many problems outside the quarterback. And where I stand, I just think I'm tired of hoping the next big thing is going to come in at quarterback and just drastically change our franchise, because it's just not. We're just going to go through the same cycle all over again, and I'm sick of it. And I hope Justin Fields is here to stay, and that was just my little tangent on our QB controversy. Now, moving on to our segment for NFL News of the Week. Like I said, Carolina won. So if you are paying attention to the Tankathon, Carolina won. So that is one win in the books. And I've said, I don't know if I've actually said it on the podcast, I might have been tweeting it. I've been thinking that Carolina is going to get some sneaky wins in this season and just enough to beat us out of the number 1 draft pick. And the Packers are really bad. And the Cardinals are really bad. So I think there's a chance here. And the Broncos are bad, although they did win. I think there's a good chance here still that the Bears do not have the number 1 pick. And I think we've been so adamant that we will have it. And I just don't think we will. I could end up 100% being wrong, but I just have a feeling. And Carolina had their first win. So if you're paying attention to the Tankathon, I think, 1, we should still be rooting for the Bears to win. But 2, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, because if the Bears don't get the number 1 overall pick, this whole narrative of Justin Fields being the QB of the future gets really murky when we have to see if the coaching staff stays, and if we don't have the number 1 pick, who are we picking outside of Caleb Williams to take over Fields? It'll be interesting. In other news, still staying on the Bears slightly for a minute, Justin Fields, rumor had it before the game, is that Justin Fields is expected to come back to practice this week. We'll see if that happens. He did have a brace on his hand during the game when he was looking super cool with his sunglasses and his headset on the sideline. Coach Fields was live in action, but he is expected to go back to the practice field. We'll see if he does, and we'll see if he ends up starting against the Saints, but that would be super cool if he does, because I think the sooner he gets in, the better. Staying in our division, if you watched the Vikings game, and if you didn't, then you might already know still, Kirk Cousins, it looks like, has torn his Achilles, just like Aaron Rodgers did. Really sad for Kirk. I don't think he's ever missed an NFL game, or he's never been out with injury. And now in a season where he needed to really have a good season, kind of prove that he's either staying in Minnesota or a good quarterback to be worth trade value, he's hurt. And he's probably out for the season. There's still MRIs have yet to happen today. But usually MRIs just confirm what you already know when you see the Achilles pop. So really sad news for Kirk. Obviously, it's a division rival. We want them to lose, but you never want to see anyone get hurt like that, especially someone who's as good of a person as Kirk Cousins is. So a bummer, but it does seem like quarterback for the Vikings has torn his Achilles. Brock Purdy, speaking of another quarterback, was cleared from concussion protocol within a day before the game. Everyone found that a bit suspicious. I found that a bit suspicious. And then during the game, he went down hard. It reminded me of a Tua hit from last year where his head ricocheted off the ground and he came up holding the back of his head. He was never taken out of the game. I'm really curious to see if he's in concussion protocol again this week. Also because a concussion doesn't go away in 5 days, so he was still concussed when he was playing. And he definitely reconcussed himself during that game. So that's going to be really interesting to see. But Brock Purdy had his 2nd game in a row that was a loss, first time in his career, and also multiple interceptions in the game. So things are not looking great for Brock Purdy right now. I think he's missing some key pieces on the 49ers, and it'll be interesting to see how their season progresses, because the 49ers were looking like the team at the start of the season, and now I think the league's kind of wide open. There are no clear winners this year, and everyone just sucks, to be honest, but we'll see where things go. Including teams sucking is the Chiefs. The Chiefs lost to the Broncos. The Broncos. I mean, we lost to the Broncos, but that's saying something. The Chiefs lost 24-9 to the Broncos and just looked way out of shape. They did not look like the Chiefs team that we know. And like I said, just a lot of bad teams this year. And even the teams you expect to be kind of leading their divisions are not doing great. It's kind of a really bad season of the NFL. But someone got a chance to shine, and that was Will Levis, who was drafted in this previous draft. And he had his NFL debut and threw 4 touchdown passes. So kudos to him. His first touchdown pass was kind of a iffy one in my opinion, but it doesn't matter. It was his first touchdown pass. Congrats to him. He had a good game. He had a really good debut. We'll see how their QB, now that's a team that will have a QB controversy, but we'll see how that plays out from here. But it was a good game, a really good game for your first NFL game, throwing 4 touchdown passes. And he also handled the podium really well and gave a shout out to the quarterbacks who played before him. And I just think he handled and carried himself really well. So that was really impressive as well. But, great game for a rookie. Now it's time. It's time for our NFC North predictions. To kick us off, we have the Lions versus the Raiders. Now, obviously, I talked about this matchup last week. because of the Lions' schedule. So my prediction then was the Lions win 23-16. I'm keeping that. I actually kind of think the Lions are going to have a higher score, but I'm not going to change my prediction now that it's been a second week. But I do think the Lions got blown out the previous week, which is why I lowered my score prediction a bit. But I think this might be a comeback game for the Lions where they suddenly relight themselves on fire, because if we could beat the Raiders, the Lions definitely could. But yeah, we'll keep it 23-16, but I kind of think that's going to be a little higher on the Lions side. Packers versus Rams. The Packers had another loss. The Packers are looking bad. I mean, the Bears are bad, but the Packers, I think, are worse. And they just don't seem to have anything together. The quarterback is playing poorly. Their receivers are playing poorly. They're coached poorly. Everything is just bad on their end. They don't really have any hopes of anything good happening right now. So I anticipate another Packers loss. Now, the Rams have also not had a great season. However, I do think they have a better shot at beating the Packers. The teams that the Rams have beat are similar to the Packers, so I think it's going to be a close one, but I honestly think that the Rams have stayed closer in games than the Packers have, which is why I leaned the direction of the Rams. So, that being said, Packers lose 23-17 is my score prediction. And I think, honestly, I'm feeling pretty confident about those numbers. I think it's going to be somewhere in there. But then again, all my predictions have been pretty bad. So clearly, what do I know? Vikings versus Falcons. Now, this one suddenly turned more interesting because Kirk Cousins is out, most likely, for the remainder of the season, which really changes things for this Vikings team, especially for a Vikings team that had just gotten a win against the 49ers and then won again against the Packers. They were looking to try to compete again for the division, and now their starting quarterback is probably out for the year. So this really makes things interesting for the Vikings. I originally predicted them to win, but I've since changed my prediction, and I'm going with a loss for the Vikings. I think Kirk Cousins being out really hurts them. Justin Jefferson, I think, is still going to be out for this game. So I anticipate this to be a loss for the Vikings. The Falcons are also first in the NFC South right now, so they're not doing too bad. And I think going against a Kirk Cousins-less and possibly Justin Jefferson-less Vikings team, I think they pull out the win. So my score prediction is the Vikings lose 21-13. I was going to go around 23, but I already have a bunch of 23s so far, so I lowered it to 21. But I think the Vikings really suffer in the scoring department, and I do still think it's a lower scoring game because of the Vikings' heavy blitz defense. Now, of course, last but not least, we have the Bears versus the Saints. Now, obviously, I picked this one as a win. The Bears are going to dominate the Saints. I am just kidding. That is absolutely not going to happen. The Bears are going to lose this game. We're going to lose it hard. Now, where it does get interesting is who's playing quarterback. Honestly, I think if Justin Fields is starting, we are looking at potentially a winnable game. And I'm not saying because suddenly Justin Fields comes in and it's just magic, but I think Justin Fields has a lot to prove. And when he comes back, he's going to come out gunslinging. And I kind of think that gives him the confidence he needs to just go out there and have a great game. And I kind of think it could swing in our direction. But because we don't know who's starting and because we don't know Justin Fields' thumb situation, even if he is starting, how well he's able to grip and throw the ball, I'm taking the L on this one for the Bears. Shocker. I have the Bears losing 27-20. I think it'll be semi-close, even though I do think there's the chance for the Saints to completely dominate this game. I think if Justin Fields is back, then this could end up still being a close game for the Bears and Saints, but it really just depends on who's at quarterback, and it also depends on the coaching staff. If Luke Getsy suddenly remembers how to coach an NFL game again, we could have it a good close game. If he is having Velus Jones Jr. running a route, then we're probably losing the game. So it's all going to be interesting to see how this upcoming week plays out. Now, if you are also predicting the Bears to lose this week, give this video a like so that I know we're on the same page. If you anticipate them to win, let me know in the comments. And if you anticipate them to lose, let me know in the comments how you think your score prediction is going to go, because I want to know. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It's really appreciated. Honestly, I just think this Bears team is kind of hopeless at this point. I still think we're going to manage to get some more wins this season, especially looking at our schedule coming up. I think we have a good shot at having some really close games. So I still think we're going to win just enough games to make us even lower on the draft totem pole when it comes time for the draft. But It'll be interesting to see how it plays out with Carolina and some of the other really bad teams in the league this year. But overall, I think we'll see some losses coming up for the Bears, and we're going to see some wins, and we're going to see a really odd record that puts us at an odd draft spot and a bunch of question marks at the end of the season, just like last year. So, yay. But that's been the video, guys. I appreciate it for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm Alexis Jade, and this has been the Shecago Bears.